going on? Welcome to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, the Iceman, Jeff Trennepohl. And as always, I'm bringing you sports from a West Side point of view right here from the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, home of Midwest Best Barbecue. If you guys have not been to Midwest Best, I suggest you go there. I was there this past Saturday. We did a live show. I got to try the CTB wings. I got to try the new chili. It is absolutely delicious. And as always, I'm coming to you live from this glorious place down here. It's the Ice Cave, and the Ice Cave is brought to you by T Properties. T Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out the website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. And you know, I say it every day. Almost every day. I'm wearing it today. We hit the jackpot when we drafted Joe Burrow. If you want any of the Jackpot Joey gear, to make sure you are geared up for when the Bengals make their Super Bowl run next year, because it's going to happen. We're going to be taking a jungle to New Orleans. Make sure you go to jackpotjoey9.com. Also, if you want to drink a delicious beer, it's at Brick Brewery. Make sure you check it out there. Also at Kroger's. I saw it there the other day. It's at Brick Brewery and Kroger. And remember, portions of the proceeds go to the Joe Burrow Hunger Relief Fund of the Joe Burrow Foundation. What is up to everybody in the chat? Strangers in there. Darth is in there. Robert's in there. What is going on, guys? All right, so we thought this was going to happen. We weren't sure when it was going to happen, but Brian Callahan is reported to be leaving and going to be the Tennessee Titans' next head coach. So I reached out to the man with a finger on the pulse of, is Dan Pitcher the next OC? Is Joe Brady, like everybody keeps tweeting out, which I don't think that's going to have Joe Brady's with Buffalo. But anyway, let's get to my man, Skinny, for all the information. Skinny, what's going on, my man?
How we doing, man?
Good. I'm just trying to get my graphics to work, and they ran fine on Facebook, but they look like crap when we're watching them. So as long as everybody else can see it, it's cool. I don't know
exactly.
what's going on with my computer. It doesn't want to play right now. Anyway, so Brian Callahan is the new head coach for Tennessee Titans. Now, that's not official yet. They hadn't had the press conference, but it's official as it's going to get. Dan Pitcher still has, as far as I know, interviews to be the offense coordinator for other teams, which I'm kind of surprised. I thought maybe, might come out between now and last night that, Dan's going to be the OC for the Bengals. What are you hearing?
Well, the one thing I would say for Dan Pitcher is you always need to go take those interviews. It gives him maybe a chance somewhere else to be a play caller, which he's not going to get the chance to do here. Mm-hmm. I do believe that last year, in fact, I know this, they paid a good sum to keep him as quarterback's coach with the idea in mind that if Brian Callahan had gotten a job last year or this year, that the succession plan would be Dan Pitcher's offensive coordinator. And I still believe that will happen.
Right.
I was one of the ilk that I thought Brian Callahan was going to have to leave here to go call plays for somebody before getting a head coaching opportunity. That obviously isn't the case. Wasn't the case with Zach Taylor either. I mean, he was a play caller at UC, but really not in the NFL other than a small interim stint. So I guess it's proven that you don't have to go from play caller to head coach. You can go from position coach to head coach or offensive coordinator without calling plays to head coach. Eric Bieniemy's gone, offensive coordinator and wanted to go call plays, so he went to Washington to do so. I think in the case of Dan Pitcher, it's a matter of how desperate do you want to call plays, how much do you think that helps you move up the rung, the coaching rung, or do you say, no, I'm good. Brian didn't call plays. He got a head coaching job. I still get to work with Joe Burrow. I still get to work with a great offense. If we do make a run to a championship game or a Super Bowl, I'll be a hot commodity as a head coach. And so those are the things he has to weigh. But I think for him, you always have to listen.
Right. And that's the thing is those are things options he's got to weigh. Like some people, and I brought this up too, but shout out to James Rapien for Lock the Bengals. He said this, that I thought maybe, Callahan leaves, maybe he'd take Pitcher with him, but Callahan hasn't got to call plays in 5 years. He's most likely going to call the plays in Tennessee. So why would Pitch leave to go to Tennessee
for a lateral move?
Right. And where he's not going to call plays anyway, most likely. So that's why I don't think he'll leave with Callahan, but some of these other jobs like New England, not Tennessee. I know New England's one. I can't think of the other one.
Carolina, I believe, is one.
Carolina, yes, there you go. See these other jobs where he potentially could.
But then you have to ask yourself: you're calling plays for a quarterback who struggled last year. You're calling plays for an offense in New England that's a disaster and it's going to be starting over. The succession plan was always, and that's why they paid Dan Pitcher a pretty good sum to keep him from jumping to Tampa Bay last year. was for the potential succession plan to take place. And so I do still think that is what's going to happen.
Absolutely. That was my, you took the words out of my mouth. That was my next point. I was saying, I don't see why he would leave to do that. Plus, the reason he didn't go to Tampa too was a big thing because you didn't know about the stability of the coaching staff. Zach Taylor's not going anywhere, despite like some Bengals fans say or want or whatever. And one thing I will put this out there, Skinny, and I'll ask your opinion on it. I think it would be very disruptive and hard for the Bengals to, if for some reason if Pitch left, to replace both of them. Now, if they had to do that, do you think it would be an outside guy, or would they get Troy Walters up here?
I don't know about Troy as an OC yet. I think that would be one. Maybe go cut your teeth someplace else. Like I said, I mean, I think the plan's always been for Pitch to be the guy,
right?
And I still think that'll happen. I mean, Troy's very highly thought of, obviously, as a position coach, and maybe it would be his time to look outside. But we maybe have an internal candidate that we could move up, in place of Dan Pitcher. Let's not forget too, Dan Pitcher got a lot of credit, and Zach Taylor went out of his way to point this out for the job he did with Jake Browning. And there's a lot of times after practice, it's funny, we'd be waiting for a couple of coaches to come in off the practice field to talk to them. And Dan Pitcher and Jake Browning and a couple of, practice squad wide receivers were usually the last guys to come in well afterwards, because that's really the only time Jake Browning got a chance to get reps was to work with him. And this was before he became the starter. This was when he was kind of the practice squad guy. And even the backup guy. And so, he had to spend his own time, a lot of extra time with Jake to make sure he got some development. And look, the kid was great, I thought, in the backup role. And a lot of that credit does go not only to Jake Browning himself, but to Dan Pitcher. And so I think for him, if you're weighing all of this, you've got a perfect scenario to step into an offensive coordinator role. And who knows, again, the Bengals make a run and you become a very hot commodity very quickly, because right, wrong, or indifferent, you make a run to a Super Bowl or too deep into a playoff several times, whether you're a top-notch coach or not on your own, you come from a hot staff, they love you. That was the interesting part to Callahan. My podcast last week with Rick Boring, we talked about this a little bit. And I said, I wasn't sure Brian would get a head coaching job this year, but I said, listen, if you thought he was a quality coach last year, if these teams thought that, and the Colts did, they interviewed him twice. Shane Steichen ended up getting the job. But if you thought he was a quality candidate last year, what changed? And the answer, nothing changed. So he was still a highly thought of candidate, and obviously got more interviews, or would have had more interviews this time around, and winds up landing a head coaching job this time around.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Skinny, I think the coaching staff doesn't get enough credit for what they did or what they've done in the last couple of years. Because everybody keeps talking about, we need a new voice, it's stagnant, yada, yada, yada. But I mean, the things that this offense coaching staff had to coach around, between Joe Burrow's appendectomy to the offensive line, to going into the Super Bowl with missing your right tackle, going to the AFC Championship game with two replacements as the offensive line, to this year Joe Burrow's calf, to the running game where they had to switch from the zone run to what they do now. I mean, there's so many things that they've done in season to change that I don't think they get enough credit for. Because, I mean, if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, that's the biggest reason I think they stunk, because they did try to do the same thing they did at the beginning of the year. Well, it wasn't working, and they didn't change. I think that's the biggest problem with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think the Bengals have done an excellent job of changing with what the personnel is.
Yeah, the day that Buffalo-Pittsburgh playoff game was snowed out, CBS replayed that Bengals AFC Championship game from last year. I was there, and I totally forgot when they first broke the huddle. I went, oh, yeah, 𝐄𝐏𝐑𝐋𝐑𝐃 started at right tackle. I remember Max Sharping starting at guard, and I remember Jackson Carman starting at left tackle. I went, my gosh, they played that game with Max Sharping, Jackson Carman, 𝐄𝐏𝐑𝐋𝐑𝐃, and almost went to the Super Bowl again. So, to your point, I get the hand-wringing over Zach Taylor sometimes with play calling and blah, blah, blah. But, hey, listen, this franchise has only had – and you people can discount this past year. It's a winning season. People don't care. I do. I know the players do. And the players do. And what matters is the players and coaches do. That's the only thing that really matters is they do.
Right.
I mean, that's only happened 3 times in franchise history where they've had 3 straight winning seasons or more. I can't discount that. That's significant for a franchise that hasn't done that very often. And that kind of keeps momentum rolling with still a very good roster intact. It's got some holes it has to fill in this offseason, but still, you're not looking to fill 1,000 different spots, and you're not looking to fill the main position of quarterback. You've got a lot of good pieces still in place.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of – it's funny that, like, how you're saying if Pitch moves up to be the OC and the Bengals make a run to the Super Bowl and everything, that he definitely could be a head coach next year, which is funny how that switches, because Lou Anarumo was a highly sought after head coaching candidate last year, and We're not getting. He's not getting. I don't even think he's getting any interviews this year. It's funny how it changes from year to year.
Yeah, I think unfortunately this has just become such an offensive-oriented league that's
Right.
the direction most not all, because obviously Antonio Pierce got the job in Las Vegas and he's a defensive guy. But I think that was also a different circumstance where he really did do a nice job in that interim role, and everybody had some buy-in. So I think it was a no-brainer for them. Lou's age probably works against him as well. And listen, if you to your point of Philadelphia, I think losing the two coordinators was significant. And I read a national piece late in the season. Was the 10-1 start for Philadelphia more the outlier than the finish? Was the finish really where this team was really going to head with two new coordinators? And they made some play calling changes in season. I think it would be very impactful if this team lost both coordinators. Now, it's less impactful because, again, Dan Pitcher's been a big part of what they've done offensively, and that should seem like a very seamless move, especially because he doesn't have that play caller role. It's not like you're replacing the coordinator and the play caller. And listen, don't get me wrong. Brian Callahan had a huge role. He was a red zone guy. He was a big part of developing game plans. He just wasn't the one that specifically called plays on game day. That was Zach Taylor's role and will continue to be. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's a more seamless transition to move Dan Pitcher into that role than if you lost a play caller coordinator and then lost your defensive coordinator on top of it. I think that would be a big shoes to fill in one off season.
Well, losing your coordinator is a big deal on both sides of the ball. Because I remember this, and I know you remember too. But when Bruce Coslet left to go to the Jets, and they never replaced him. I mean, Sam Weiss took over as the offense coordinator and play caller and everything, and the offense wasn't the same. I mean, it wasn't. But I mean, it was a big loss losing him, and that's where I like it's really good. And people discount this how important it is to just seamlessly move pitcher in because. It's going to – everybody say, oh, well, nothing's going to change. Well, things will change. I mean, pitcher is a different guy than Callahan.
Different voice.
Yeah, it's a different voice. He's going to have a different voice, a bigger voice than he had before, going from the quarterback coach to that. Plus, whoever they have as the quarterback coach is probably also going to be brought in, which who do you think that might be?
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting because I don't know if maybe they don't just keep him in the dual role. And maybe I'm wrong in that regard. Maybe there is somebody out there, and there probably is. I mean, listen – head coaches, there's so much connection between guys. I always find it interesting when during the weekly Wednesday press conference and some guy on a staff Zach brings up it seems like they all have tentacles to each other and they all know each other and all those things and are all familiar with each other. So yeah, I'm sure there's guys on a list out there, but I would think there's a possibility he keeps the dual. Don't forget they've got Brad Cragthorpe on staff too, who's kind of been an assistant quarterbacks coach. Move him into that role, if you will. And again, that keeps a lot of things seamless. It keeps a lot of same voices with all these players that understand what they want and they understand what the players can and can't do.
And that's where I think people want a different voice. And I'm like, I know they want a different voice. And people always get on Zach Taylor about play calling. I'm like, because people would say, well, let Brian Callahan, call plays. I'm like, he's never done it. It's like, so I might always argue, well, how do you know he's going to be any better than what Zach's doing? Because according to go ahead.
Yeah, and Zach has given him some dry runs in preseason games to at least give him that opportunity. But you're right. I mean, change for change's sake doesn't mean necessarily success. It can. Yeah. I mean, let's give Buffalo all the credit in the world. They fired Ken Dorsey at a key juncture of their season, brought, to your point, you were mentioning Joe Brady, brought Joe Brady in. And honestly, that offense really took off after that. And maybe they did. That was a team that did need a new voice. Mm-hmm. I don't believe this team does. I don't.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it does either. Because, look, if Burrow doesn't get hurt, we're in the playoffs. I mean, we're winning one or two more games that we lost, and we're in the playoffs. And who knows what happens with a healthy Joe Burrow. But the thing is, we keep hearing Joe Brady's name ever since we drafted Joe Burrow. Oh, yeah, we get Joe Brady. Because of the 1 year, it was a great year he had at LSU. But, Joe Brady had an OC job at Carolina, and that didn't go so great. So, and now he's in Buffalo. And, yeah, it went really well, except for, they didn't beat Kansas City. But I got a question for you, just real quick on that Kansas City game. Everybody keeps blaming the kicker or whatever. I keep looking at Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he kept, all you need to do was try to get a first down, at least make it closer or give yourself a shot at a touchdown. And he kept going deep and going deep and going deep. I'm like, do your check down. I'm like, that's where I think it's more on Josh Allen on not taking what they gave him.
And listen, he's human, but he also underthrew a wide receiver in the end zone that would have been a touchdown. Yep. And then on the third down rollout, he had a guy wide open in the middle of the field and didn't see him. Now, that happens too. But, yeah, that kick – I'm chalking that up to just, I mean, the wind was hellacious. I mean, he doesn't miss a kick. Listen, I hit some drives like that occasionally off the tee box that do that, and I can't blame the wind on that for me, but that clearly was a difficult kick. I mean, there was nothing easy about that. And yeah, I mean, you're allowed to go win that game. The other thing too is, and you know it, Patrick Mahomes likely takes that team down for a field goal anyway. It's just what the guy does. So, I mean, you can't say that wouldn't have happened, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, you have no idea. And the thing is, and one thing is I don't think Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he made plays. Don't get me wrong. I want to preface it that way. But I think their run game was more effective in this game than actually
it had to be.
Than Patrick Mahomes. That was the bigger factor, I think, for Kansas City in that game instead of Patrick Mahomes running around making plays like he normally does.
It's still incredible that they've gone to 6 straight AFC.
It's annoying. It's annoying as hell.
It's crazy. I mean, they've done just, and they've had to manage what the Bengals are about to have to manage, some real cap issues because you have to pay the quarterback, and they paid the quarterback, and you can see it's affected their wide receiver game, right? I mean, it took them to get Rashee Rice, a rookie, the really became their top target if they cycled through a bunch of veterans. And, the Bengals are in a much better position with that because of the likely extension for Jamar Chase. But, hey, it shows that when you're paying the quarterback, you either have to hit on a bunch of draft picks and hit on multiple draft picks, and they're paying for the sins a little bit of the 2021 draft the Bengals are at the moment. But you better hit on some of those guys because you can't plug every hole in free agency anymore. The Bengals had the ability to do that, and they did that on the last few years through free agency on both sides of the ball, but that time's running short to be able to do those kind of things.
Exactly. Now, speaking of free agents, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. They're going to tag T and either tag him, trade him, whatever. He's only way he's leaving is if the Bengals trade him. He's going to be a Bengal next year, I think, unless they tag him, trade him. But with that being said, for me, Skinny, I think, and people bang on Jonah Williams all they want. I think Jonah Williams did fine. I think if you bring him back, you have the same 5 guys and the offensive line for the first time in who knows how long. I think that right there is going to improve your offensive line play. Now, some people come out and say, well, Jonah doesn't want to be here. Like, how do you know that? You don't know that. Jonah can make a whole bunch more money. I agree. Jonah can go out. If he hits the free agent market, yes, I think he can get 60, 70 million or whatever because he can play left tackle, play right tackle. And I've said that all year long. I said, all he's doing is making himself more money. But I would really like the Bengals to keep him. People are like, oh no, you can go get a right tackle in the draft. Skinny, I'm not.
I'm not doing that.
Right, because it's not that easy. I mean, the Bengals have tried.
Yes,
I mean, they keep drafting guys. God love Cordell Volson. It's worked. I mean, but he's the 5th, 6th round pick in the guard. We need a right tackle. We need a stud. And the whole thing everybody keeps saying, we got to keep Joe healthy. We got to keep Joe healthy. Well, you want to keep Jonah Williams? Oh no, that guy's awful. Like what?
Yeah. I think the key is to look at what the free agent market might be, and I think that's where those guys certainly can do a much better job than I can of projecting what the salary structure is going to be for some of those guys. Do you want to go back to the Riley Reith route or the La'el Collins route or the Cordy Glenn route? Do you really want to go that route? I don't think you do. But to your point, in my opinion, I think it's a waste to spend high round draft capital on offensive linemen. I know some pan out. Penei Sewell's panned out very nicely up in Detroit. And again, that was the draft where they chose Jamar Chase over him. And I think we're all good with that. And
I'll still take Chase over him.
I would too. And kudos to Penei Sewell for showing that he was what people thought he was going to be. But those guys seem more and more rare. And that's where, again, I'm not anti-drafting linemen. I'm just not there on drafting them high. Third, fourth,
drafting for plug and play. That's the thing that's scary.
Correct.
We want to win a Super Bowl. We're relying on this guy. He's got to be able to protect Joe. I know Jonah Williams can. You can say what you want about him. He's a good right tackle. Is he an all-pro? No. Is he a Pro Bowl? No. He's a good right tackle, and that's what you at least need. That.
And to me, you got a guy with proven NFL tape. You need that. That's what you need. You need a guy with proven NFL tape. He has it. You're right. To your point, is it Pro Bowl caliber? No, it's not. Is it good enough? It sure is. And the other part to it is, you look and. To your point, and I don't think it's just the Bengals can't scout offense. I don't. I just think offensive linemen in college are hard to project. Now, did they go too high for Jackson Carman? Probably. But for the most part, they're hard to project. And, I think they've tried to plug that. And to this point, I mean, you go back to that 21 draft, Jackson Carman was a 2nd-round pick. Deontay Smith was a 4th-round pick. Trey Hill was a 6th-round pick. And until that regular season finale this year, they played one combined snap all year. I don't know if that's on them. You can say, well, Frank Pollock's not developing. I don't even know if I buy that part either to it. I just think it's just so hard to project college offensive linemen with the way college offensive schemes are run these days. And again, the Bengals are not alone. Look across the league at offensive lines. I mean, it felt like the other night Patrick Mahomes took the snap and was running for his life half the time. And he was. I mean, he really was.
That's what cracks me up is somebody trying to tell me, like, oh, Kansas City's got a great offensive line. It's like, no, they don't. Their offensive line sucks. I said, like, their interior is pretty good, but their tackles are terrible.
Yeah.
Now, for us, our tackles are actually pretty good. Our Capo was okay, but I love Ted Karras, but him and Cordell Wilson, I think, were the weakest part of the offensive line this year. That's where a lot of the pushers come out. But our tackles were fine. Everybody thought, oh, PFF grade is this. But go watch the tape. Go watch where the pressure was coming from. It wasn't coming from the tackles.
Let me just tell you something. Listen, I'm not going to crap on PFF because it is a metric that sometimes it gives you a number to what your eyeballs see, right? The first time it ever turned me on was 1 year when Ray Maluga was just really struggling as middle linebacker. My eyeballs saw that, and the grade kind of reflected that. And I guess you could argue maybe your eyeballs see that with a Jonah Williams, and the grade reflects that. But I got to be honest with you, the coaches don't think much of PFF. I'm just telling you point blank. They don't think very highly of it because, to their point, they don't know specifically what a guy's role is on a play.
Right.
Or maybe even when a sack occurs when Joe Burrow, and Joe does this, and he admits he does it. If it's a situation where he doesn't mind getting sacked because it's either, you're going to punt anyway, or you're not taking yourself out of field goal range, he's going to hold the ball a tick or two longer, try to let something develop, and then a sack comes and it's, well, he got sacked. Yeah, but that sack really is kind of on him, and he's the first to admit those kind of things. But PFF grade's going to get dinged for it.
Exactly. And that's one thing I wish Joe would quit doing. I don't want him to get hit anymore. I'm tired of him getting hit, and I wish he'd get that thought process out of his head. But for me, Skinny, if they sign Jonah, which I hope they do, I think this draft in general is going to be a heavy defensive draft. I think we really need to try. I think DJ Reader's going to come back. I have no idea when he's going to play or anything. I think it's going to be a proven deal or whatever. But we need more interior linemen.
No question.
We still need, we still haven't, and that's been 2 years. We still haven't replaced Larry Ogunjobi.
Correct.
I mean, he was a big key to that Super Bowl run with him rotating him and then BJ Hill coming off the bench, which BJ is replaceable. We need somebody to replace what BJ did off the bench, and we need somebody to help out DJ as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and BJ Hill's played way too many snaps the last couple of years, and that's it's not because by design, it's because almost by default. I think they really believed, and when we saw him in the spring, I thought I kind of believed this too. That Zach Carter was going to take that step forward to be that rotational 3 technique, and he really never developed into that. Now, maybe give him one more offseason to see, but I don't know if you can even afford that. I think, And to your point, I mean, the other part, the nose tackle piece of it, the DJ Reader piece, Josh Tupou's been a very reliable 15 a snap a game guy, but he's not a play 70% of the snaps guy. So that's an important position to replace. It'd be hard to believe DJ Reader's ready to play when next season starts. In a perfect world, he does get held. That's the other part too. I mean, quads are tough to come back from. He's come back from one. Now you're trying to come back from a second at a little bit more of an advanced age at a position where those quads are pretty important to what you do for a living, pushing down
a big guy like him.
But if somehow, let's just say he comes back fully healthy 6 weeks into the season, no team's going to sign an injured guy in all likelihood. Maybe you do get fortunate to get him back on a hey, you get for the rest of the year on a prove it deal, and it's a win for you because you can prove it and go elsewhere and make some money, and maybe a win for us. But to the point of it, I'm not banking on that happening.
Right.
So you have to find a replacement for that position, no question.
Exactly. And this is why I don't really, I mean, everybody wants to do draft talk now, but I don't really, I like looking at the draft, but the draft talk really for what your specific team might do comes after free agency. Because, all last year going up to free agency, we were like, oh, we got to get a right tackle. We got to get a right tackle. That's who we're going to draft. And then they signed Orlando Brown. So they're like, all right, well, screw that. Then we're going to go get a tight end. And they end up getting Myles Murphy. So that's where I'm always like, yeah, you can do draft talk, but until the free agency settles down, then you're actually going to have a better picture of what they actually might do. Because at 18, it's going to be hard to get an impact player because people banged on Myles Murphy. I think Myles Murphy's going to be a pretty good player. I think he starts to develop that way.
I thought he did towards the end of the year. I thought he gave them some quality snaps at the end of the year. And would you like to have been quicker? Would you like to have him to be an impact from day one? Probably, but I don't think that was ever going to take place. He was only going to get rotational snaps in a best case scenario. I was surprised. I think on one of the podcasts we did before the season started, I said one of the interesting things I was looking forward to see what the pass rush package was going to look like. And I really thought maybe they'd kick Sam Hubbard down inside and Murphy would be an edge guy. And maybe that'll be a case this year where Sam doesn't take on the Ogunjobi role because he's not a tackle, but maybe on the third down situation that's a chance to get maybe Sam in a spot that's more advantageous to him with his length and with his quickness. And if Myles Murphy develops like you're hoping, then Myles Murphy and Trey Hendrickson are your ends, and suddenly you got a nice pass rush package. And maybe that was the plan from day one, and Myles just never quite got there early enough to be able to do that.
Well, another guy who was very disappointing for me was Joseph Osai. I thought he was going to have a just comeback year for the way the season ended the year before, the late hit and all that stuff. I'm like, all right, he's going to come back focused. I know he got hurt at the beginning of the year, but he wasn't hurt all year.
No.
It wasn't that he wasn't making plays. They didn't put him on the field, Skinny. I mean, he got like 2 or 3 snaps some games.
And each week during the season, just for transparency, we talked to both coordinators. We kind of alternate days. Brian Callahan one day, Lou Anarumo the next, to kind of review the last game, talk about the upcoming game, and then ask some questions about individual players. And I'll bet you of the 16 or 17 weeks we talked to Lou, probably 10 to 12 times a question was asked about Joseph Osai and his development. And Lou kept pointing to the injuries. Well, at some point, that's no longer the case. Right. So we never really got a clear-cut answer to that question of, how could he not get on the field? And again, some of it is the games were so there was no real room for error in a lot of games this year. Yeah. So you remember the Seattle game, he actually made a point of going to the front four and saying, I'm not taking any of you guys out. It's on you guys to finish this game off. And so some of that was situational related, but look, if the guy had shown some things that maybe Lou Anarumo wanted, he would have been on the field. And I really thought the way he played that penalty aside against Kansas City down the stretch of last year, I was waiting for an impact here from him.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't happen. Yeah, the way he ended last year, I'm like, oh, dude, he's going to be a monster, and he was nowhere to be found. Now I'm going to bring this one up. Now I blame Trags for this because Trags brought this up on my show. But it's Fro here says, Skitty, is it just social media speculation or Chris Jones could come here as a free agent? Trags brought this up on my show, so I blame him.
Well, if Trags can find a way to make that salary cap work, good for him. But I don't. That's a far-fetched dealio to try to get the money freed up for that.
Yeah, I was talking to Trags. I said, all right, cool. We signed Chris Jones. We signed Jonah Williams. We draft
there's an extension looming for a certain, because don't forget, it's not just salary cap related to this year. When you start talking about some of this, it's salary cap moving out, and I know the salary cap's going to continue to grow, but at some point you're going to run into that issue, and you still have a certain wide receiver that you need to sign an extension to, who's going to break the bank as well.
Yeah, is he number one?
I do believe he wears number one. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I would love Chris Jones. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think there could be some guys out there, free agent wise, that they could possibly try to sign for, because they can't address everything. And it's not like the Bengals have a ton of holes. But the defense, for me, was the most disappointing part of this season.
No question.
Say what you want about the offense, but the reason we went to the Super Bowl and AFC Championship games is because of the defense the last 2 years, and the defense was nowhere close to what it had been.
No, and I think that's the part that holds me back of where this team can go next year. It's going to be great to have Joe Burrow back, and will he make a difference? Well, sure, he's an elite quarterback. He should make a difference. But they also did win 4 games down the stretch without him. But the defense also cost you greatly in Pittsburgh, right? I mean, that was the difference really in that game. It put you behind the 8 ball from Jump Street. And there were multiple times this year the defense didn't play well. The Houston game, I mean, if you want to point to 2 games that were really disappointing games, it was the Pittsburgh game at Pittsburgh and the Houston game at home, and both of those were defensive-oriented issues. I do think, there's a lot of it to the back end, and I'll even ding myself for this, because I really thought that they would be able to overcome the loss of both safeties. But I do go back to Lou Anarumo when we talked to him at the combine, where he said it's going to be a dark day if we lose both of them, and he was right. And I think the disappointing play was Dax Hill, and I don't know if his future is as a safety. It's a possibility moving forward, that he's the eventual replacement as a slot corner for Mike Hilton. But then that opens up the door of, well, then you need some more safety depth.
And sure as hell it ain't Nick Scott.
No. I mean, they found a role for him on third downs, but I think, in a perfect world moving forward, and again, Jordan Battle was a rookie. You literally had essentially two rookies playing back there, him and Dax. I think the goal would be eventually, Jordan Battle becomes a 3-down safety. I mean, they did find a role for Nick, and you're right, he was not it, no question about that. But I think that was discounted a little bit. I do think they're fine at corner. I think DJ Turner did hit a little bit of a rookie wall. And losing Cam Taylor-Britt for 5 games didn't help, but he was great when he did play. But You need depth behind those guys too, and you saw it last year. You need depth every year.
So one thing, my buddy Joe Farsing, he does the Bengals show. You've been on his show. He brought this up on his big take or hot take or whatever it is. He thinks or says that Carolina's going to cut Von Bell and he'd come back here. I said, dude, if they do that, I would take him back in a heartbeat. I will drive there to go get him.
Yeah, that's interesting because he's got guaranteed money coming his way on the second year of his contract. That was really kind of the differentiator is the Bengals don't often do that. They certainly did it with Joe Burrow, but they don't often give
not safeties. They don't.
Yeah, right. Not guaranteed money. And that's signing bonus aside because that's guaranteed money, but guaranteed base salary money.
Right.
Vaughn got that in Carolina, and it didn't work. It didn't work out for him, for them, for anybody. That would be a nice scenario if you could somehow pull that off because I still think he has value. Even if he has lost a step in the last couple of years, he is invaluable in many, many ways.
Well, another thing Trags brought up, and I don't know if Callahan or Lou Anarumo said this or what, but they were saying that Dax's biggest problem, because everybody, communication is what I heard a lot of. They said Dax wasn't loud enough, I guess, which I'm like, hey, hang out with me. I'll teach you how to be loud. You've been around me, Skinny. You know I can get loud. So, but that's an interesting thing. Is that just it? Is that just it? He got to get louder? Hey, get over there. We're doing this.
I think it's the confidence to make the call too. I mean, one of the plays that really kind of set the tone for that, and I all season long it seemed like it was festering, and finally at the end in that Kansas City game, there were a few people that were willing to kind of roll Dax under the bus a little bit, and Cam Taylor-Britt was one of them because it looked like on that one deep ball to Rashee Rice that he just let him go. Well, he did because he was supposed to, because that was the coverage. It was supposed to be a zone. Dax didn't communicate what the play was, and he runs right down the field, and Dax blows the call. And that's one of those things that you look at all the accumulation of big plays, and some of it was in the run game due to missed tackles. Some of it was due to missed tackles from the safety position too, but some of it was due to missed tackles. But boy, in the passing game, a lot of it was due to lack of communication, even just passing off guys from one zone to the next. I mean, it felt like Houston hit them on 25 deep over routes in that game. And a lot of the deep over route stuff to cover is all about communication and passing guys off. And they did a horrifying job of that. Maybe a year in the offseason under his belt. There's been talk about the safeties having, off-season meetings and watching film together. Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe it takes you a year to go through the league and realize, I thought I was preparing the right way. I thought, I learned from some guys that prepared, and maybe I thought I was doing it. I need to do a better job of that. Because Dax is a super athletic guy. We've seen that part of it. It's just a matter of, again, experience is a hell of a thing in this league. It's funny to watch. Corners especially are guys that rookie year, they look lost. And then suddenly with a year under their belt, they come back, watch some off-season film, got confidence, and come back and play. And hopefully that would be the case for Dax Hill because you don't all of a sudden want to be replaced. You thought you were replacing the safeties you were expecting to lose, right? That's why you drafted Dax Hill. You knew you were losing one of those two guys, specifically Jesse Bates. And you end up losing both, but you knew you were losing one. They did the preemptive strike for that reason, and you hate to start over because the guy didn't pan out.
Right, exactly. And the thing is somebody we talked about this before, and somebody in the chat has brought this up, and you probably got remember the numbers, but Bates and Bell first year with Lou Anarumo, calling the plays and everything, they weren't as good at it as they got.
It's experience playing together. I still remember writing a piece last year. I talked to a bunch of those guys about the way they were able to disguise stuff and disguise coverages. And that sounds easy, but it's not. You have to play off each other. Jesse could walk down in the box and Vaughn would show a look on one side, and suddenly right before the snap, Vaughn's the one who's coming down into the box and Jesse's dropping deep and the quarterback's confused. And that's all a matter of knowing how to do it at the right time together, playing off each other. And that doesn't come with just saying, hey, we got two good guys back there. Now that helps. Right. But it comes with the experience of playing with each other, experience of playing with each other in the system. And I'm not making an excuse for Dax. He did not play. He played a handful of snaps at safety as a rookie. I mean, really, his primary start was as a slot corner against Tampa.
Right.
And some of that was because Bates and Bell were so durable, but he got no experience. And last year was the year he got experience. And so, yeah, it was not good, and the communication was not good. But the hope would be, all right, a year under his belt, another year into an offseason, that gets better. I know hope is never a plan, but you got to hope for that.
Right. Well, I hope they at least add to that room with a veteran.
No question.
That's what I hope they do. So if Dax doesn't develop, this guy who already have can take over or at least show him the ropes.
Correct.
Now, I want to roll on here the last 10 minutes or so we're on here. UC.
Yes.
University of Cincinnati played at one of the legendary places last night in Kansas. And this makes me hate Kansas City even more because they beat us last night. But Skinny, I had Terry Nelson on here. I've had Dan Horde, and I've told both of them. I said, I am pleasantly shocked and surprised at how well they are playing against these teams, because that was 6 games in a row of ranked teams.
Yep.
The first time, I think, in UC's history, they played 6 ranked teams. And that's the first 6 games they played in the Big 12. Now, they were in every game. We could have won all of them. We've won one of them or 2 of them. Anyway, where are you at? Because I'm a little worried now, because I'm like, when we started playing, all right, we might be all right. We might make the NCAA tournament. But Skinny, we got to win some of these games, because I know we got Central Florida next, but they just beat Kansas. So, I mean, it doesn't get any easier. Even though they're not ranked, they beat Kansas. So, to me, yes, we have a shot still, but we got to win some of these games, and they're not any easier. What's your thoughts on UC?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I said on my podcast, I thought they'd be lucky to win 5 games in the league, and so they've surprised me too. I got to give them a lot of credit. To your point, they've been in every game, and a lot of the losses are self-inflicted. Last night didn't make shots. Oklahoma game didn't rebound. Texas game don't make some free throws. Even the Oklahoma game don't. It's just been something different each and every time. But they've competed. Now the thing that and I do this as a Kentucky football fan in the SEC, you get hyped up after a couple of early games, but then I also warn, it's the cumulative effect of game after game, of grind after grind.
Right.
And yeah, it does. It can wear you completely out to the point where you're looking up going, man, we're in these things, but that's not going to get you in an NCAA tournament. You need to get some of those as wins, and they still have to probably get 6 or 7 wins. And when you still look at the schedule, it's really hard to find those. Mm-hmm. Again, if you get those, it's going to add to the resume very easily, but it's just very hard to find those. And again, then when does the cumulative effect of the grind of playing well, playing hard, start to take its toll mentally and maybe even physically? I think one of the problems is they just have not been able to develop that 1 or 2 go-to guys game in, game out. Sometimes it's kind of fun to watch different guys on different nights provide stuff, but as a coach, you don't know when that is. I mean, when does Dan Skillings have his big night? Oh, maybe not tonight.
Yeah, half.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough yin and yang for them. I do think it's been fun to watch them compete. I know the atmospheres in Fifth Third have been off the charts and been fun, but this team, for me, offensively just really has too many holes to find still a ton of wins. Again, to their credit, they've been way more competitive than I thought, especially in the road games. I mean, at Baylor, extremely competitive. Win at BYU. And it's funny, BYU lost the UC game. They lost their next game after that. You thought, okay, maybe they were a nice story going in. Well, they've kind of bounced back very quickly, and that becomes a really good win for UC. But to your point, you need to start piling some of these up, and it's just go again. Even if you're the most ardent UC fan, start looking at the schedule, be honest with yourself, and go, there's a handful I can look at and go, okay, Oklahoma State at home, UCF at home. That becomes, honestly, UCF at home becomes it becomes really almost tantamount to win almost all of your remaining home games, because still any road game in this league, even though to their credit they went to Provo and beat BYU, it's still going to be hard to go win on the road, especially when you don't make shots, you don't make free throws. That makes it even tougher to go on the road and win in any league, especially this doggone league.
Yeah, they gotta they gotta win the home games. Those are the ones you've got to win those. And the most frustrating thing to me is they miss so many easy shots, like layups, dunks. They're a great rebounding team, but they'll throw it off, and it's not like we slam it off the backboard. It'll roll around and just roll off. I'm like a layup. It'll go up there and it just rolls. I'm like, good God! Like how if we can make that to me that's been the biggest egregious and most consistent thing I think is how many easy shots they miss.
It's frustrating.
Oh my God!
It's frustrating.
I'm like, you get always to the rim and then you can't finish. It's just, and that if they could get half of those, we win these games.
Yeah, the high school team I coach, we played a game last week and we ended up winning it. But there was a coach from another team who sat behind us because he was scouting the other team. As I walked off the floor, I said, "We are the layup missingest team in the history of basketball, man." And it's frustrating to watch because it's guys that you watch in practice. They finish through contact. They finish, and in games sometimes I think it's just. Sometimes the pressure. Listen, I think some of it too is Big 12 length is real, man.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think that's part of it too. Is you're so worried about even when you go up of getting a shot block rather than worrying about finishing. And if you get your shot block, you get your shot block, or go into somebody's body, whatever. All those things. I think some of that too is just Big 12 length is real at all positions. Wings to fours to certainly centers. It's real, and I think sometimes that can't be discounted either. That does factor into missing some of what you think are chippies.
Yeah, and hopefully, like you said, hopefully the grind of fighting really hard, trying really hard, and keep coming up short, it doesn't weigh on them because eventually they're going to be like, we can't do anything. It doesn't matter what we do, we can't win. That's the part that worries me. I don't think we're there yet. But
no, I don't either. No, again, if you'd have told me on paper this team was going 2-4 through the first 6, I'd have said sign me up for that if I'm a UC fan. I know you probably would have said no, 2. Because you were really staring 0-6 down the barrel, right? I mean, BYU road game, I didn't chalk that up as a win. To their credit, they got it. Baylor and Kansas, I certainly, because they're road games against great teams, I didn't chalk up the win. So then it put it on the home games. And, again, they got a big road win. They got one of the home games and should have had arguably the other 2 home games, certainly the Texas game. So, you look up like 2-4 is fine. And then you mentioned it. I just had the schedule here and I just lost it. So give me 1 second because it's UCF at home, then 2 road games. And then I believe Houston at home on the back end of the next 4 games.
I want to beat Houston so effing bad. I hate Houston. Sorry.
Well, again, they're great. And you're talking about getting a scout. Now that'd be a great one to get even at home. That would be a huge one to get. They're number 1 in KenPom at the moment. And, legit team for sure. It's certainly a 1 seed level team. That would be a nice resume booster. But then, again, you look at it because of what didn't happen in the non-conference and because the non-conference schedule was so bad, you still got, like I said, you got to get 5-6 more of these.
Right. Exactly. But one thing that I'm keeping this in the back of my head. I'm trying to put this out there for Bearcat fans. And the majority of these guys can come back next year. Let's say they all decide to go into the transfer portal. Most of them are coming back. And they're going to add people. With this schedule and this gauntlet they've went through and how they've been playing, that may boast well, I think for next year. I think actually next year might be the year that we really get over the hump. The way they've been playing and the guys that we have, because like you said, Skilling's like that guy was off the chart the first half last night, but then he was nowhere to be found the second half. Those are things that I think going through a year of the Big 12 will help these guys mature, know what to do, know how to handle it, going into next year. So I think next year, all this they go through this year just does nothing but help them for next year.
They need, and this is easier said than done, they need an NBA level talent in the transfer portal. It's hard to win Big 12 games without NBA talent. And I just don't know when I look at that roster. I see some really good college players and they've proven that point. I don't know if I see an NBA guy yet. And
what about Jizzle? You don't think Jizzle?
Not yet. I think
that's the one I think could be.
But not yet. But to your point, another year under his belt, I think he does take a big step next year. I'll give you that one. But yeah, an NBA level talent would go a long, long way. And again, look around the country at the top teams. Most of them have 1 or 2 and sometimes 3 NBA level talent. And that's a lot of that makes a lot of difference for sure.
Well, that's been the problem with, I think, UC, even when Mick Cronin was here. When Huggins was here, we had NBA level talent.
Yep.
When Mick was here, we we didn't. Not really. I mean,
but here's the thing I will tell you is in that league, I'm not sure you needed a lot of high-level NBA
Right.
content. Yeah, you needed it in the NCAA tournament, and maybe that cost him in the NCAA tournament for sure. For sure. But, you know, I don't think you needed that high level in that league. In this league, you better have it.
Exactly. All right, one final thing here. We'll talk about the Reds here. We're getting ready for catchers. They're doing the caravan right now. They just signed the local kid, and he looked like a kid at a candy store with his Reds jersey on out there in Portsmouth with the caravan. Where are you at with the Reds offseason? They did offseason's not over yet, but I don't think they're going to go get that big name starter that I hoped they were going to get. But I like the guys they have and the potential of what this team can do.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I do too. Rick Boyer and I talked about this on the podcast last week. There was a piece that ESPN wrote, and I wish I could give the author credit. It might have been Dan Schoenfeld that made the point that the Reds should have taken a swing at one big free agent acquisition rather than the multiple guys they did. And I appreciate what he did, but I disagree with that. And they did. I mean, they did take a swing for Sonny Gray and didn't end up getting him.
He chose the Cardinals. Were you surprised by that? Because I thought
I still think finances probably played more into that. That at some point you come to the point of, hey, that's too much if we're going to do some other things.
Right.
But listen, they've added so much pitching depth. Whether it pans out or not, I don't know. I mean, Frankie Montas has a history of injuries. He could get hurt on day one. He says he's healthy. That's all great. But you really have a legitimate chance. I mean, a legitimate chance for Andrew Abbott to start this year in AAA. Yeah. I mean, that's for Williamson to start this year in AAA.
I think Williamson will start in AAA.
Yeah, you've added great depth to your bullpen. You've added, a Candelario who can play multiple positions. You're trying to find – listen, I don't think he's a world beater. I think he's a starting level player in this league. You're trying to find a place to play Jonathan India at the moment. And the potential for Marte to go back and play in AAA. And I think he's major league ready now. So you got some good problems, and that's because you added a bunch of different pieces. And, hey, listen, it wasn't like you're now trying to go from 68 wins to playoff caliber wins. Right. You came close last year after a 21-29 start. And to the point of his piece of going out and trying to find that one star, you're banking on this. You're banking on the young guys you brought up to become those stars. That's what you're banking on, and rightfully so. If it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But I think that's what you're that's what you're counting on. Not all of them, because not all of them are going to pan out to be stars.
Right.
But you're panning on a few of those guys to become the stars. And so to me, I don't think you were far off to begin with. And I don't know if it was just the one guy that was going to put you over the top. And now multiple guys give you needed depth. And as you see anymore in baseball, I don't care how good your team is, how much money you've spent, you're going to start 8, 9, 10, 11 different starting pitchers in a season.
Look at the Reds last year.
Correct.
I mean, they started. Now, one thing I will say, and it still goes back to the same thing I was saying last year on the four young starting pitchers, Hunter Green, Lodolo, Ashcraft, and I'll put Abbott in there too.
Yeah.
Those four, to me, and I've said this, and I'm not saying they're going to do this, but it reminds me of the Atlanta Braves back then. We had Smoltz, Glavine,
Steve Avery.
Steve Avery, thank you. Maddox wasn't there yet. But that reminds me that's, and I'm not saying they're going to be this, but I think they have the potential to do that. And if
I agree,
those guys can stay healthy, that's the key, Skinny. Those guys can stay healthy, especially Lodolo and Green. Those two can stay healthy and pitch anywhere close to what their potential is. That's a 1-2 punch right there that most teams would kill for.
And the Braves let those guys pitch through a lot of mistakes. And I think the Reds have done some of that. We've seen Hunter Green at times look just god-awful, and they let him pitch through it. And then there's times he looks like, oh, my, that's the electrifying guy you were getting in the draft. And the more he gets through some of this, the more I think he does show to be that guy. I mean, I invite anybody, go back and go to John Smoltz baseball reference page and look at his first year or two in Atlanta. And it was an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
And obviously, what did he become? Because they believed in what they saw, and they believed he was going to develop, and they let him do that. And I think that was a great thing last year. You know, Andrew Abbott probably pitched more than he was supposed to pitch because you got in a playoff race. Everybody was hurt. He was kind of your last lone reliable guy.
He's the only one that had left for a while there.
And unfortunately, he ran out of gas. But I think you saw him. He got a chance to pitch through some of those things. So yeah, I'm with you. I've drawn that analogy myself numerous times. And you know, if it pans out even close to that, you got a chance to make a run for a while.
Oh yeah, and well, if they pay that close, I think we can win this division. To be honest,
Yeah, yeah.
that's where I'm at. But I mean, they got to stay. The thing is, they got to stay healthy. I mean, that's Green and Lodolo.
But you've got the depth if you don't. That's the
Right,
key to
true.
what they've done. They've added
Right.
the depth just in case that doesn't happen. And I'm not sure I bank on that ever happening for teams anymore.
Right. Well, and it's kind of funny because the MLB Network put out their projected starting rotation, and they didn't have Nick Lodolo in there, which I thought was kind of shocking because
Well, that may be the injury thing to make sure when he comes back from the injury. I didn't see it. I mean, I don't know if they explained that.
you should follow me on Twitter. I had it out there.
I didn't see. I haven't looked at Twitter in 2 days, to be honest with you.
But one thing I want to put this out because if you remember the game, and this game always sticks out to me, is in April, Lodolo pitched against the Atlanta Braves, and he shut them down. So I mean, it wasn't a matter of. I think he figured out that he could
Remember
pitch.
the game in Philly early in the year?
Yeah,
He was dynamic.
yeah. I mean, he was pitching great until he got hurt, and that's the thing is, I think he's got the confidence, knows that he can pitch in here. He just got to stay healthy. Hunter Green, I think he knows he can. He's just got to get consistent at. And Hunter, I don't think Hunter needs to throw the ball 105 miles an hour all the time. I think that's where he's got to try to figure out how to change speeds a little bit more than he does. Maybe add a pitch in there. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think he's been trying to work that changeup in, and it just hasn't come consistently enough. And maybe this is an offseason that it clicks, or maybe this is an offseason where he just says, "To hell with it. I'm going to become a 2-pitch pitcher and try to hit me, and I'll just do it with location." I'll be interested to see what they do with him in the spring and the conversations that come out of it, because like we've seen numerous times. I mean, when he's electric, he is absolutely electric and almost unhittable.
Exactly. All right, Skinny, you've been on for 56 minutes. I appreciate you.
You bet.
One more quick question for the Ask Skinny Anything question. What's the silliest question you've ever got asked?
Silliest? I don't even consider any of the silliest questions out of bounds.
Most outlandish one. You're going, what? Or caught you off guard.
Mo Eggers caught me off guard with a couple of lists he's asked me to compile. So I usually have to take a little bit of time to compile those lists. So those ones take me off guard. So I don't mind those. I like doing the lists. I think we did one of he asked me to rank the hottest 10 TV sitcom ladies from the 80s, and he gave me the list of them. So I had to go. I could do most of that off the top of my head, but I had to go back and look at a couple. And somebody asked me to rank some 80s TV shows. Some of them were easy for me to rank at the bottom, and some were easy to rank at the top. The middle was hard to rank. So those are usually the ones. But no, there's nothing out of bounds. There's nothing too silly.
So were you shocked that Tony Pike was not in the Kansas City Chiefs suite with all the other UC quarterbacks? Yeah, everybody was there except him.
And he should be jealous.
Exactly. All right, Skinny, man. I appreciate it. Hey, plug some stuff before I let you go, man.
What's that?
Plug some stuff before I let you go.
You can just find all our content. I'm back from a week of vacation after literally the grind of an NFL season can just grind you to a pulp, I promise. So we're back. Got a couple stories up today. Got the Brian Callahan story up last night. And actually a story today about a former Reds first-round draft pick who's trying to make it back in the Reds organization as a knuckleball pitcher.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh, I have to read that.
There you go.
You got me intrigued. You already got me hooked, Skinny.
There you go.
All right, dude. Thanks, Skinny. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, you bet. Take care.
See ya. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Go follow Skinny on everything he does. He great dude. I see him all the time down at the practice there. He's always been awesome to me. So make sure you check him out and on his podcast. One other thing I'd like you guys to check out: the most delicious wings in the tri-state area. They are Midwest Best Barbecue. Like I said, I recommend the chili. That's the newest thing they got out there. The CTB wings are really good too. The Uno wings are good. I don't foresee for some reason. I'm always like I like the Grippo ones. They've always been my favorite ones, but all of them are good. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of them. Make sure you guys check them out. Go say hi to Tim and Nicole. They are great people. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day. I don't think I have anybody scheduled for tomorrow, so I'll be working on that to try to get some people on. I know I got Draft Dale, my boy Dale, but he's going to be on the show Friday. We'll be talking some draft there. But stay tuned. So if you missed the show, you can watch it back. Just thanks for watching. Do me a favor, hit the likes, hit the thumbs up. Thanks for watching, everybody who watch on ZTV Online. YouTube, we're at 2,495 subscribers. Facebook, I have 3,439. X, 3,954 followers. And then you can follow me on all those, plus Instagram, Threads, TikTok. The podcast, I'll be pulling this out later tonight. Put it on the podcast on Beanpod, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcast. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. Leave a comment, and some more Cincinnati fans can find my podcast. Like I said, please hit the thumbs up. If you're watching this on the replay, hit the thumbs up, share it out. Like I said, it just helps me out, helps me get YouTube, get my show out, even though YouTube doesn't have me monetized right now. We're trying to get more subscribers and everything. So when I go back to being monetized, you're like, oh, wow, we need to actually help this guy out. He's actually got a pretty good following. Other than that, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Like I said, I don't know who's going to be on, but it's a mystery guest. And ready? Throw it up. That's just sports, baby. See ya!